Welcome to Sacred Magic. Violet is on a quest to bring sacredness back into our everyday experiences. Anyone can have an extraordinary life when they are able to tap into their sacred magic within. Violet and her guests will be sharing their divine passions, inspirations, and stories of connecting with their sacred magic. We are so happy you have joined us today. Let's get started with your host, the magical creator of Discover Your Spiritual Gifts, Vialet Rayne.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sacred Magic Podcast. I'm your host, Vialet Rayne, and my guest today is Jennifer Johnston. Jenn is a passionate life coach dedicated to empowering women to build confidence, set boundaries, and live authentically fulfilling lives. Known for her empathic and intuitive approach, Jenn helps her clients uncover their potential and take bold steps towards their dreams. A wife and a soccer mom, Jenn seamlessly balances family life with her mission to uplift women, bringing humor, grace, and unwavering support to every facet of her work. She believes every woman has the power to create a life that excites and fulfills them, and she's here to guide them every step of the way. I love that. I love that. So, talk to me a little bit. I'm sure you had a journey to get to the place that you're at today. That taught you lots of things, and that's how you're able to guide and teach others. Share a little bit about your story of what led you to do what you do today.
Yeah, I'm thinking, oh gosh, how far back do I go? Because isn't it just the truth that our experiences are preparation for our purpose and our mission and our calling? And so it's like, as I look over my life, I've been preparing for this moment from day one. So I jokingly say that about where do I start, but part of it's really true. I think the most obvious, um, the most obvious place to start is prior to, I'm trying to think how my son's 10 years old. So there we go. So about 12 years ago, I had just gotten a divorce. I had been living with my then husband in Pennsylvania, and we separated after just a couple years of marriage. And I moved back to Ohio, and I landed in the bar and restaurant industry, which is what I had done previously. It was kind of like my lifelong career. And about a year later, I got pregnant with my son. And as much as I would love to say that that was an exciting thing, it was not, because at 35 years old and single, because his father and I had already broken up, I was not excited about having a child. But what I will say is that little boy gave me a reason to do and be somebody different. And from the moment that he was born, I knew I wasn't going back to what I had always done before, what I had always known. Now, the future was still really unclear, but I knew that the past was not going to be what it had been, because now I had this other human being that I was responsible for. So I was incredibly lucky. I was able to get a job with Costco Wholesale. I still shout out Costco all the time because they're such a great company to work for. And I got a job with them, and I moved up the ranks and landed in a sales and marketing position, which is probably one of the most coveted positions in the store, because you work like Monday through Friday, in your, like the 9 to 5 job, right? And so working a retail job, that's almost unheard of. So I had landed this job, and I was so proud of myself, and I was so excited because it had all of the things. It had the 401k, it had the benefits, it had the bonuses and the raises, and it had the schedule that I wanted. And for, a 35, 36-year-old gal with no college degree and no formal training, I really thought that I had just landed in my career. And it really worked for me for a long time. And I'm super grateful for that time too, because I'm really clear that that job was there for me at the time that I needed it. So everything that I went through in that period of time, because of that job, everything was okay. Fast forward about 5 years, I attended a leadership program that was here in Ohio. It's a for-profit leadership organization. And as a graduate of that program, I was invited to come back and coach other cycles that came through after me. And so I just became obsessed with coaching these transformational weekends. Like it just gave me life to be in a space where I just watch people let down their old stories, let down their old heartaches and heartbreaks and the guilt and the shame and all of the things that have been holding these people back in their lives, to just watch them release it and step fully into who they are. Just truly, it filled me. I mean, it filled my whole being. And the problem was I was volunteer coaching. So I was using all of my personal time, all of my vacation time, and all of my sick time to go coach these weekends. And when I was out of all that time, I was taking unpaid days. And so finally, I just kind of had the realization one day that my job was getting in the way of me doing the thing that I loved. And so within a month, I had put my notice in at my job and I had gone to the local community college and registered for classes because I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I knew that I wanted to help people. And so I went and registered for classes and entered into the social work program. One thing led to another, and now here I am coaching.
I love that. I love that story because I think we're all spiritually guided. If we can really step back and look at our life, each step has given us a skill or an ability or
Mhm,
wisdom or knowledge to our purpose or what we're
mhm,
supposed to do. I see the young people today struggling with, well, I'm doing this job. I probably shouldn't be doing this. Trust those instincts
mhm,
because even those jobs of when we were young give us skill sets and tools that we don't understand that are going to lead us to the next step, to the next step, to the next step. There's no really wrong step that we can take. There are lessons and experiences that we gain through
mhm,
all of that. And if you can really step back and look at it from that perspective, you'll be blown away of, oh yeah, now I know why I
yeah.
did that. Now I know why
Yes.
I was there. Now I know why that job came into my life at
Yep.
exactly the right time. It really is that magical on how our lives are weaved in and out and
Mhm,
how we're guided down that path. So I love
mhm,
that.
yeah.
So one of the things that you have here is why putting yourself first isn't selfish. Because I know for a lot of us, when I tell people, you got to love yourself first, you got to take
Mhm,
time for you first. As mothers, typically the moms are always sacrificing themselves for their children, for their husbands, for their career, for their families. There's all these sacrifices that come through that we feel like we have to do, which means we don't take care of ourselves. So, share with us your perspective on that putting yourself first.
sure. Yeah, so there's a couple things that really come up for me around that. And one of them is we are teaching our children and we are teaching the people watching us how to treat us. And so if I raise my child in a way that shows them that I sacrifice myself for the people around me and consistently put them first and me last, then what do you think my child is going to do? They're going to grow up consistently putting other people first, putting their needs last, putting their wants last. I would much rather grow up, and I have a young son. I have a 10-year-old son. And so I'm witness, like I am, he is witnessing me, I guess is what I'm trying to say. He is witnessing me choosing my life at 45 years old. And it doesn't come at the cost of him. Now, does it mean that I get to set down everything I'm doing every single time at the drop of a dime to go, be there for him? No, it actually doesn't. Do I miss some soccer games? Occasionally I do. Not very many, I have to say, but I do miss them. But what I'm showing him is that no matter what your circumstances are, no matter your age, no matter your stage in life, no matter your status, you are completely capable of achieving what you want to achieve. And that's the legacy that I want to leave with my kids. And, my kid, I have one, but also like my niece and the other littles and my nephew and the other littles that are watching me. But the second thing, and this is probably the most important thing, is if we're putting ourselves last, then our families are never getting the best of us. They're getting what's left over. So they're getting what's left over after I put my husband first, after I put my son first, after I put his soccer team that I admin for first, after I put my sister and my niece, after I put the house, after I put the dog. So after I put all of those things first, right, my clients, then you can have what's left of me. Like that, how does that actually work? Versus coming from a full cup, right? There's that saying, like, you can't pour from an empty cup. And that's what you're choosing when you're constantly choosing to put your children first or the other people in your life. And so I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't occasionally do it myself, right? I grew up in a time where both of my parents were working. My mom was in school, plus she was working full time. Plus, I think she was even working part time. And my dad was a truck driver. And so he was gone Monday through Friday. So my parents weren't present for a lot of my things. So I ran cross country, did choir, played volleyball, did all these activities. And usually my parents weren't in the audience. So my response to that, right? That hurt little girl inside nowadays, every time my son has a soccer game, I clear my calendar, right? I clear my calendar and I go and I make sure that I'm on the sidelines for him. And it's not to say that that's wrong, that I make what he's up to a priority, but it's not letting the hurt little girl inside me make those decisions.
I love that. I love that because I'm older than you. So I was a single mom
Mm-hmm.
practically most of my life. So I worked full time. I was in retail. So, retail hours.
Yes.
And so I didn't go to my kids' stuff because I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't. I was trying to pay the bills and I was trying to work
Right.
just like your parents were.
Right.
And I found that both of my children have gone out of the way to be present for their children's things in school for the same reason. Mom
Right.
was never there in the audience. She couldn't be there.
Mm-hmm.
She was working. I have one daughter that's very understanding that I was trying to take care of them and provide for them. I have
Mm-hmm.
another daughter that's very bitter over the fact that she didn't get to do
Yeah.
lots of things that she wanted to do. And today I'm sure she overcompensates with her own children because
Mm-hmm.
they've gotten into everything. And so she's that mom that's running all over. But I get how generation to generation, we try to make up for something that's missing or was missing in our lives for our children. It just
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. We see that over and over again. But my question to you about putting ourselves first, I think this is where people have the hardest time
Sure.
is somebody comes up and says, I need you to do this for me, or I need you to do
Mm-hmm.
that. How do you respond back so that you can get somebody to understand today I need to do something for me, right? I would
Mm-hmm.
love to be there, but I can't because I need to take care of me. What do you tell your clients that have a hard time? Because I have a student whose parents make her feel guilty when she's not there and shows up. So she
Yeah.
sacrifices every time to be there because mom's like, well, you're supposed to be here. You're my daughter. You're supposed to take.
Right.
So, what do you tell your clients that have these types of situations?
Well, there's two things. One of them is when you say yes to something, what are you saying no to? Because if I'm choosing to say yes to being at this family outing, what am I saying no to? Am I saying no to my downtime? Am I saying no to my rest? Am I saying no to my home? Like, what are the things that you're saying no to when you say yes? So I
Mhm.
think getting really clear on that is really important with anything, truly. Anytime you say yes to something, you are saying no to something else. So being super clear on that. The second thing is I don't actually owe anybody any explanation. I don't owe anybody an explanation. If I just cannot help that person today, I'm not going to say, I'm so sorry. I would love to be able to help you, but I can't because I need to take care of me. It's actually none of their business. And I don't need to give you an excuse or reason. And it's simply just say, thank you for thinking of me. Please ask me again. Unfortunately, I can't do this time.
I love that. I
I don't
have a
need a reason.
well, it's funny because I do a gallery with a woman that's been a friend, colleague, all that, and she goes, "No is a full sentence."
Yes.
And I remember that a lot of times because I'm one of those that are always like, I should explain why I'm
Mhm.
setting this boundary. I should give them a reason why I'm putting this line in the sand. And she's like, no, no is a complete sentence. Sorry,
Absolutely.
no. And so, that leads us into setting boundaries and
Mhm.
breaking some patterns
Mhm.
generationally. How do you help people do that? And what is
Mhm.
your approach to setting really good boundaries?
Mhm. Boundaries, especially with family, is really hard because, like I said earlier, right when I was talking about that hurt little girl whose parents weren't there, is now calling the shots with how I show up for my kid. So do our parents, and so do our grandparents. It's the hurt children in them, it's the hurt people in them that are parenting us in the way that they weren't. And it was fascinating to watch that, with my own mother and my grandmother, because before she passed away, she lived with my mom. And I watched that interaction and I just thought, oh my gosh, I just had so much insight into my childhood. And so it's kind of it's remembering those things too. I know I just went a little bit off topic. It's like I need to rein it back in here. But with the boundaries, kind of also like no is a full sentence to your point. So the thing that I really encourage about boundaries is they get to happen in a grounded, neutral space. So boundaries don't get to happen when you're in the midst of losing your temper, when you're having an emotional breakdown because of the interaction. Those are not going to be effective. So the boundaries get to happen in a neutral, grounded space. And probably my most effective way to set a boundary is to address the situation at hand. You know, years ago, my mom and I had a little bit of a tense relationship, and she would yell at me and say some really hurtful things to me. And I'm not saying this to throw her under the bus by any means. Like, we all have our faults, and we've all done our personal work. But one of the things that I would say to her is, Mom, if you yell at me and if you start calling me names, I am going to leave the conversation. So that might look like I'm going to hang up the phone. I'm going to leave the house. I'm going to walk away. But being really clear about this is the boundary. And if you cross it, this is what I will do. So that when it happens, it doesn't have to be a fight. It doesn't have to be a breakdown. You simply say what you were going to do.
Right.
Like co-parenting with my son has been a real challenge. And his dad and I really butt heads sometimes. And I will say to him, if you do this, this is how I'm going to respond. And it leaves the arguing out of it. And so for me, that is how I encourage people to set boundaries. But underneath all of it, it's really saying, like, this is the boundary. And if you cross it, this is going to be the outcome. And maybe you don't get to say that, right? Maybe it's in a way that you don't get to actually have that conversation because maybe the person on the other end doesn't have the capacity to have that conversation. You can set it internally.
Well, I love the fact that you say do it when it's neutral.
Hmm.
Not when it, excuse me, not when it's emotionally charged,
Hmm.
because then it's not grounded. It really does is not effective. So a great example of that was I had a client probably 6 or 7 years ago, and it was around the holidays, and she's like, okay, my family wants me to come home for the holidays. It's always miserable. It's always this, it's always that.
Hmm.
And I said, don't go.
Hmm.
And she was like, what? Don't go. Create a new tradition here. Have
Right.
a holiday at home. Gather friends. Do something different. Don't go home. She goes, but my family. And I'm like, it's a choice, right?
Right.
You have choices. If you're going to go and be miserable and have an unhealthy holiday, don't
Mhm.
go,
Mhm.
right? And if they want you to come back and do holidays with them again, then you can say in a calm manner after the holidays and it's not emotionally triggering, hey, it's not fun, it's not healthy for me, and see
Right.
if they'll change it, right?
Hmm.
If they really want you there, they're going to make accommodations for you to show up. And if not, create a new tradition. And people are like, I can't not go. Yes, you can. It's a
You
choice.
can. Yeah.
You can make that choice. And I love the fact that you started the conversation, which is what I really believe. How we treat ourselves is how other people are going to treat us.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
if you're constantly sacrificing yourself, if you're constantly overgiving, if you're constantly doing that, people are going to take advantage of that because they know that you're going to do that on some
Mhm.
level, and they're not going to treat you well. Everybody should be treated with some form of respect and honor
Mhm.
and reverence, right? So why don't we do more of that and just be honest sometimes? I think that's the hardest thing sometimes, is
Yes.
being honest with ourselves and others,
Hmm.
right? So you talk about reinventing yourself at any age.
Hmm.
What does that look like? So, how do you help clients reinvent themselves, or how did you reinvent yourself?
I think it is because I reinvented myself that I am able to help my clients do the same thing. I think that especially women as we get older and we become mothers and we become partners and we become, soccer club managers or PTO leaders, as we take on more and more responsibilities that come with this life that has unfolded before us, it gets so easy to just stay there.
Mhm.
And, it says at the end of my bio, like, we have the ability to rewrite our story at any time. The only thing that's holding you back from that is the internal stories that play through your head every single day. So I have a client who just left her job where she was making, I, I'll be honest with you, I don't know how much she was making, but it was a lot of money. She had this corporate job, she was making boatloads of money, and she walked away from it because it was draining her. Because it was literally sucking her soul. She had to be a version of herself that she didn't even like. And so she walked away from the money and she walked away from the title and she walked away from the corporation that, thousands of people want to work for because she knew that she had a purpose and a calling and a life that was worth living. And that wasn't living, that was surviving. So
Mhm.
noticing like when we're in the trends of our life where we're surviving, right? Like when I shared my job is getting in the way of me doing the thing that I love. I don't like sales and marketing. Are you kidding me? I hated doing that job, but it was the good job on paper that it was providing me with the things that I needed to raise my kid. So I stayed there. But who's to say that I couldn't have a job doing something that I love, making the money that still allowed me and gave me the time and the space and the energy to still be able to provide for my son, which is what I'm doing now. So I think that's really like my driving. How do I want to say this? What really drives me behind this is, are you surviving or are you living? And so many of us are just surviving, especially in our careers. So many are just surviving. And like I said, the only thing that's holding you there is the stories that you're telling yourself that you can't leave, because you are 100% capable of leaving. You just get to choose it.
Well, and a lot of us, I think some of the other challenges, because I left a big corporate job 7 years ago too,
Mhm.
is I think it's we have something that lots of people would give anything to have. You know,
Mhm.
that corner office, that executive position, that making six figures, that
Mhm.
being in control, having the nice car, being able to do whatever you want, right? And
Mhm.
people would give anything because, like most people, at least at my age, I was told if you went to school, you got an education, you worked hard, you
Mhm.
followed your career, you could have anything and everything you want. Well, that's all materialistic. And when you get to
Sure.
that point and realize I'm not joyful, I'm not happy,
Mhm.
I'm not doing what I really want to do. I'm not passionate about this, but I can do this really, really well and I can do it in my sleep and I'm very good at it. It's kind of hard to walk away. You have to like
Yeah.
move through that fear, right? Of
Mhm.
what's going to happen next to do that. And not everybody can do that, but I think if you really want it, you can, because we have these old beliefs and programmings that we really have to move through to go, hey, I'm going to be okay. Because I see a lot of people that are making six figures and then they want to have their own business, and it's not always going to start out at six figures. It's going to take a while to grow it, to set it,
Yeah.
to groom it, to build it. It doesn't happen overnight. And I see these beautiful people walk away going, okay, I'm going to hang a shingle and I'm going to see clients and and it's like it takes time
Yeah.
to do that and to build that. So there is a reality, but I think if you're meant to do that, the universe is going to provide for you to be able to do that. You just got to find the right
Absolutely.
way
Yeah.
to move into that energy to have that. It is possible. It is very possible, but
Mhm.
it's not always super easy. It takes work and it takes endurance. And, you know, marketing these days is very hard and it's gotten very difficult compared to even 7 years ago. So,
Sure. Sure.
you know, COVID has changed so many things for us that we're
Right.
learning new ways to connect and build our businesses as
Mhm.
entrepreneurs, and finding ways to do that. But that's enough of my bandwagon. Dreams are possible. People are doing it every day. I'm just saying, you got to work
Yeah.
at it, right?
Yeah. And if I could just add one more thing to that real quick, that also doesn't mean that, and I'm not sitting here saying, quit your job today and go do the thing that you love. Like, of course, you get to be responsible of, right? Like, yes, I did leave my job and I did go back to school and I did do it as a single mother. And I was financially set up in a way that still allowed me to be responsible for myself and my kid. Not everybody has that. So, you know, so how do you move into that? Right? Does it mean that you take, you take your foot off the gas a little bit with this corporate job so that you can lean more into this other thing that you love? Do you come up with a benchmark number? When I'm making X amount of money in my business, I can cover all of my bills and I can walk away, and responsibilities, and I can walk away from the corporate job. That might look a little bit different for everybody. So please don't hear me saying, go quit your job.
You know, there's always ways, right? Because I
Yes.
tell people if you have a job that's Monday through Friday and you want to step into an entrepreneur job, then do it on Saturday or Sunday and build it up to the
Mhm.
point. And then today's world has a lot of flexibility. I really believe that sometimes you can step into a part-time
Mhm.
career and slowly move into, I mean, there's lots of opportunity to be able to do
Yeah.
that. You can get really creative and you can absolutely do it. Some
Mhm.
people are financially have been able to set themselves up where they can pull back some expenses and make it work so that they can build into that track. As a business person, there are lots of ways to be able to do this in a very
Yeah.
productive way that's not so scary, but it still takes work to do that. And so it is definitely possible. So, Jennifer, share with us some of the things that you offer, because we'll have your website at the bottom of the video and in the podcast notes. But share with us some of the things that you offer for clients that would love to work with you.
Yeah, so I do a combination of one-on-one coaching and a little bit of group coaching. So right, actually, in just a few weeks, so at the very first part of January, I actually has just started a new program, taking a very small group of women through it, but it's going to be a year-long program. And the pillars of the programs are retreats. So we're going to have a retreat to kick us off in January, one to kind of reset and recalibrate in June, and then we're going to come back together again in December to celebrate everything we've created for the year. Now, this isn't necessarily a new year, new year, new you kind of thing, but it's an it's an easy place to start, right? The calendar rolls over. It's an easy place to say, okay, today I draw the line in the sand. Today I'm doing something different. And so with this program, we're really leaning in with this small group of women for the next year. Like, okay, you say this is what you want. You have support, you have accountability, you have coaching, you have community, you have everything you need to get there. And so I'm really excited about this program. I'm excited with the ladies that I'm doing it with. I do have one more spot open. And I just decided to open it. I was closed and I said, I'm going to open it up to one more lady because I feel like there's one more lady that's supposed to be with us and I just don't know who she is yet. So I'm waiting for her to come. So that's how I'm doing group coaching right now. And then I do one-on-one coaching. I work with women, mostly women, a handful of men, but mostly women. I work with them for 6 months or 12 months. Almost everybody goes at least 12 months because coaching is not because your life isn't working. Coaching is because your life is working and you see a higher possibility. You see something different or something more that you could have or be. And so you're stepping into it to have the support to make the changes that you need to make. A lot of the women that I work with, it is about creating fulfillment in their lives. It is around career because that's my own personal story. Another group of women that I work with, though, they're women who have these great, big, beautiful ideas, but self-doubt just really holds them back. And so, we work on building their confidence. We work on eliminating the stories, that they're telling themselves about how they can't do it and really empowering them to go create that life. Because like I said earlier, the only thing stopping them is the stories that they play in their head. So that's the two ways. I do have a couple of things that are kind of on the horizon. I've had it on my heart to do a podcast for a while now. I just haven't officially, I haven't put a date on the calendar, but I have committed to starting to record in January. So it's going to be called Rapid Rise, Growth on the Go. And it will be just short 20 to 30-minute podcasts for women who maybe don't have an hour to commit to a podcast, but they do have the ride to and from school to drop their kids off at car loop or soccer practice or wherever. So I have that around the corner. And then I also am really excited to launch a retreat this year. I want to do it internationally. I'm a little bit on the fence about where I want to go, but I'm definitely thinking of someplace warm and tropical that I just want to bring women together and just let them be and let them receive and have their cups filled and connect with other women because we don't often have opportunities to do that. So that's something that's also on my heart. I have done retreats in the past. They've all been a little bit of a smaller scale, kind of local. And so this is my opportunity to really go big with it. And so there's a link on my website and it's called Journey with Jenn because it's a little metaphorically. So that's on there too. Yeah.
I love that. That sounds awesome. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today and
Thank you so much.
sharing your journey. I really do appreciate it. I look
Yeah.
forward to hearing about your podcast in the future when you get that going. How amazing that will be.
Yeah.
And then thank you for everyone that took the time to listen or to watch our podcast. We really appreciate it. We hope you'll like and comment. Follow us on your favorite channels. We'd love to know that you're out there. So let us know what you think and give us your comments. Have a magical and sacred week and happy holidays. It'll be after the holidays when you hear this, but I hope you had a magical holiday. How's that? Thank you so much, Jenn. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a great time.
Awesome.
Thank you for joining us. To find out more about Vialet, head over to discoveryourspiritualgifts.com. You can also send a personal message to Vialet through email, violet@discoveryourspiritualgifts.com. If you love the show, subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. Until next time, remember, we are meant to have abundant and joyful lives. We hope to see you soon at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts.